welcome today to YHC TV's Hometown Hero program. And I know a lot of you have been enjoying our programs. You've told us so, and we want to continue bringing this program to you. And we've had requests for some folks to want to give personal donations or what have you. And no amount will be too little, and no amount will be too small, or too big. So if you would like to help keep this program going, contact YHC TV or to be a sponsor or donation. Either be gladly accepted. And today we are really privileged to have a unique family, the Wethington family, and they're from all over, but they grew up around Gray Ridge in Essex in that area, and there was 10 of these family members, and 9 of them served in the military. And I'll give you their names here. And it was Glenn, he was the oldest, and Paul and Pauline were twins. And then there was Russell, and then Fred, and Elsie, and MB, Donald, David, and Linda. And there's some of those folks that I mentioned that they are deceased, and those are ones we're going to start a program with today, with the help of the brothers and sisters. And guys, tell us a little bit about Glenn. He was the oldest, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, none of us remember him as a kid.
Yeah, in other words, he was already grown by the time y'all kind of came along, wasn't he? What branch of service was he in?
He was in the Air Force. Well, first of all, at the end of World War II, he was drafted into the Army.
Oh, was he?
But he didn't serve very long, probably less than 2 years in the Army.
Yeah.
And then got out of the Army and then decided it was pretty good in there, so then he joined the Air Force. So then he served, I guess, 4 years in the Air Force.
Yes, that's correct.
I see. And but the war had kind of ended, and
Right,
he wasn't in very long. And then he came back to this area, didn't he?
Right. He came back to this area, and he was a bricklayer all over southeast Missouri. And he laid brick mason, built lots of buildings.
Yeah. And I guess all you boys growing up as kids, you had to have a lot of fun, and you had to got in a lot of meanness. And
the older ones got in all the meanness.
That was my department.
Fred, you told me a story earlier. I think it was about Glenn, wasn't it, or was it Russell? About
Russell and me.
yeah, about wasn't it a horse race or something?
Yeah, and the red mule.
Yeah, tell us that story if you would, please.
Well, and this was in 1945, and this country is like it is now. The war, they just fought a war, and it was broke, and the people were all about broke, if not completely. And Russell and me sitting around, we could hear our parents talking about how bad things could get if everybody just completely run out of money. That we felt like there should be something that we could do to help out. And we heard of this little thing, a horse racing thing, was some neighborhood kids had organized it, and for a couple of dollars you could enter an animal in the race, horse, mule, goat, a cow. It didn't make any difference. If you won, you got the kitty, and if you didn't, you just lost your entry fee. $2 I think is when it started out. Well, there was an old red mule on this farm that we lived on, belonged to Mr. Giese, and of course we had to go see him, see if it'd be all right for us to take this mule to the races. And he okayed it, providing we didn't injure the mule or anything like that. And he would be ready for his Monday morning job on the farm. So we took him to the races every weekend all that summer of 1945, and never lost a race, not a single one. And there were some days there we would take in several $100s. When some of the boys would bring their race horses or quarter horses or beautiful horses, riding horses, and they turned their nose up to old Red Mule and want to raise the entry fee. Well, that pleased us because we knew we would win. So, after this, when the season ended, we had taken in over $2,000, and we had applied it to our grocery bill at the local grocery store, and that fall when it was time to pay up, my dad and mom discovered that they didn't know anything. We had taken care of it, and we had a lot of fun with Thorough Mule.
Well, good, good. Did you ever race him, or did your brother?
We both raced.
Both of you raced him, huh?
He drove and I rode behind and kept the money in my pockets.
Yeah. Well, you think you could ride that mule today if you still had him?
I could.
I believe you could too.
Tell me where the races are at, and I'll enter him.
All right. Well, you know, I know times, I didn't live through those times, but I've heard many stories, and I know that money really was appreciated by your family.
I'm sure.
All right, now the twins, Paul and Pauline. Tell us a little bit about Paul first, if you would. What branch was he in?
Well, he joined the Navy, and he was a storekeeper as an enlisted person, but he kept staying in and kept advancing, and he eventually became a warrant officer, and then he entered into the LDO program, Limited Duty Officer program, and he wound up getting his full commission and wound up as a full lieutenant. And as an LDO, he could have made lieutenant commander, but he decided it was time to get out instead of he was going to have to stick around like 6 more years, something like that. But with 24 years service, he retired from the Navy.
And what countries did he serve in during his amount of time?
My goodness, I don't know exactly what all countries.
Well, I mean, the major ones, I think you said earlier, was Korea.
Yeah.
And
Vietnam, he had some duty in Vietnam,
right. Yeah.
yes, sir. Right when Vietnam was getting started is when he retired. He was one very interesting thing. He was of course, a supply officer, and he was the supply officer at El Centro, California Naval Air Station. And the significance of El Centro is that it was the Navy's Blue Angels winter home. So they took care of the Blue Angels. I know I visited him one time, and they were practicing while I was there, and it was like 4 days of a personal air show for me. It was unbelievable.
They didn't let you ride, though, huh?
No, sir.
You didn't want to ride?
Oh, I didn't ask them if I could. No.
And how many? I think you told me he's had a total of 24 years.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
24 years.
And where did he go after he got out of the service?
He moved over fairly close to San Diego and retired. He loved the ocean and retired out there. Yes.
I see. And Miss Pauline, what branch did she serve in?
Polly was in the Air Force, and she wound up. She was, served some in Korea when she was in, and a total of 4.
No, less than 4 years. About 3 years.
3 years.
She met a guy from
that's
Shelbyville,
right.
Tennessee, who was also in the Air Force.
Yes.
And when they married, and when she got pregnant with their son, when she got pregnant, well, the Air Force made her
Discharged.
yeah.
Yeah.
And did you have a term for that earlier, or was that something else I was thinking about?
Term for what?
For while she no, I think.
I think you got eldest.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, radar.
Kitty Cruise or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
You could go in and your length of time would be you discharged the day before you're 21.
Yes.
And
That was a Kitty Cruise.
Polly's husband then went ahead and served, did a career of the Air Force.
Yes.
So they were, and then they settled in Shelbyville, Tennessee.
And where is Glenn, where is he buried at? Where his resting place at?
Garden of Memory Cemetery in Saxton.
In
Yeah.
Saxton. And Paul?
Paul and Polly are both out here at the Veteran Cemetery at Bloomfield.
And then we're getting on over here to, well now, Fred, we'll team you up with Paul here a minute. You had a request, did you, to get teamed up with Paul, and you was in the Navy, right?
Well, yes, when I completed boot training, why, I wanted a shore duty somewhere, and I was given the opportunity to ask for duty with Paul, because he had been in California for several years. And but at the time I was asking for duty with him, he was asking for sea duty so that it would help him in advancing.
Yeah.
And he got his request honored, and I got mine. So we both went aboard to Baltimore.
Baltimore.
And we served on there all about the time I was in.
And that was what you call a heavy cruiser, wasn't it?
Yes.
And a heavy cruiser had what on it?
Well, it had 9 8-inch guns for artillery support. And I don't know, anyway, it had a lot of 5-inch guns for anti-aircraft and stuff like that. 40 millimeters. And
yeah, it was right below a battleship size-wise, wasn't it? Yeah.
Now
Yes.
you had a unique situation too. You got to dock at London, England for a while, and you and Paul both, weren't you?
we were both aboard ship at the time.
Yeah, yeah. And you got to go on Liberty, or was
When the Queen was coronated over there in 1953.
Queen Elizabeth, right?
Yes, Queen Elizabeth II. They invited a ship from every navy in the planet, from every country that had a navy. They invited to send one ship to represent that country, and we were chosen to represent the U.S. And so in our preparations for that Coronation Naval Review, they call it, we spent a lot of time lining the side of the ship, with our people.
Sure.
And practicing the hip hip hooray, because that's what we had to do when the Queen,
Yes, sir.
all these countries, the ships got there and got anchored out from London there. And
So when she sailed by, you got the hoorah, did you?
oh, that's right.
Well, I understand later on, or maybe before that, you had an up close and personal contact with the Queen.
We did.
Well, I don't want to embarrass you, but tell us just a little bit about that.
Well, when we first landed in London, some friends of mine, we decided that we'd like to have a meal out of a nice restaurant there in London. So we went ashore and was having a good meal. And we knew that the Queen was supposed to come by this restaurant that day on her way to the whatever. And so somebody yelled out, "Here's the Queen, here's the Queen." So we jumped up and charged out of that place, and I was leading it. And as I went through the door, the Queen had got out of her carriage a block or so away and was walking the sidewalk, and I crashed right into her and knocked her down, and I fell down. And we were both laying there on the sidewalk, and the two policemen, or bobbies they called them,
Yes, sir.
with their baseball bats, their clubs they carry. I thought surely they had killed me there, but they, I guess, realized that it was an accident. I didn't, no intention involved. So they just helped her up, and I got up myself and got back in.
Was you messed up? Did you say sorry, ma'am, or sorry, Queen, or Do you remember if you
Well,
said
I
anything?
apologize to her.
Did you? Well, good. You did.
I sure didn't mean to run into her.
Well, there's not many people that's had an up close and personal experience
Didn't
with
have to
Queen
prove
Elizabeth, have they? Well, that was a neat story.
Mm-mm.
Now let's get to. Let's see. Have we already done all of Russell? Have we already spoken about Russell? I don't remember.
Yeah, we talked about him and his
Oh yeah.
and his
And
and his
racing
and his
the mule.
Yeah,
mule
racing
race,
the mule.
but,
But
Yeah.
he was in the Navy also
In the
4
Navy.
years.
Okay. Yeah.
He served on the aircraft carrier USS Boxer. And I don't know what else he served on, but I know he was on the Boxer for a while.
Yeah.
And that was he was spent time close to Korea. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think MB was going to tell a story about a surprise, but I don't remember what that was.
I don't either.
Well, that was when was it Russell and Glenn that met in Seoul,
That's
Korea?
what it was.
Oh, that's
yeah,
correct.
Russell, Glenn was in the Air Force and he
Yeah.
was in Seoul, Korea,
That's right.
and Russell was on the USS Boxer, and they were out off the shore, but they didn't know that each other was nearby. But,
Yeah, isn't it?
but for some reason, Russell had to go into Seoul on some kind of business, and went to find Glenn and walked up to his desk, and Glenn didn't know he was even in that half of the world, much less. But so they had a good visit in Seoul. Yeah.
Don't you know they were just both overwhelmed?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were. Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
yes.
That's really neat. And I guess he spent 4 years and
Right.
altogether with us. And I think you told me he was in Arlington, Texas later on.
Yes,
And
sir.
was an artist.
Yes.
Who did
He
he
went
inherit
to-
that artist ability from?
Well, possibly his mother. She used to, I don't know that she did that much art, but she took
Oh.
great care and honor in her penmanship. She
Yeah.
could, excellent type penmanship.
And that's where he met his wife? Or was-
Yes, he went to art school down there, and
Art
he
school.
met his wife in art school, and they got married, and he stayed down there.
And she had been in the Marines before too, so she had
Yeah.
military service too.
And talking to all of you, every one of you done something pretty remarkable too. You sent, every one of you sent money home to the family.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's just,
Yeah.
and they needed it too, didn't they?
Yes, sir.
And those times were difficult, and that was really, really a blessing that you did that for your family. Now, Fred, we talked a little bit. I know you spent a lot of life in around the Gray Ridge area as a child, and you liked livestock pretty good, if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken. But there's something white out there you didn't care much for, wasn't it? And I can understand why.
You're referring to cotton.
That's right.
No, I don't have any use for that. I
Uh,
spent too much time in the cotton field, either for the chopping it or picking it.
And it happens to be Fred's birthday today, and Fred, congratulations. I'm pretty sure it's your 80th birthday.
I like to call it
70 plus
70-10.
70-10. That's his birthday.
Well, I was 79 last year. 10 follows 9.
That's right, it does. Well, congratulations, and I'm glad you're feeling well and doing good.
I should have my shirt on I got.
Well, that's,
Mm-mm. Yeah.
It's got a big 80 on it. Looks like a football player, you know.
And
Says, it took me only 80 years to get this good looking.
just get that good looking. Well, I know you boys, when you get together and go talking about old times, you talk about being a kid out there on the farm, and I know you did things like I did. If I'm not mistaken, you had a milk cow, and you jump out of the hayloft on that old milk cow's back and try to make her buck a little, wouldn't you?
Well, I was past that, but I heard lots of stories about these guys jumping out there and doing it. Yes.
And then which one of you, when she get her going good, would grab her by the tail and do a little barnyard skiing?
That was MB, I think.
That was MB, I believe it was, wasn't it? Yeah, he said she'd come around there and he'd grab her by the tail and he'd do a little barnyard skiing.
Yes.
I don't know if he's barefooted or not.
I'm sure he was, yes. If it wasn't school time.
And then one of the favorite areas in the wintertime was be getting the hay off to those old barns, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I know that was a lot of fun.
Mm-mm.
That's a few years ago, wasn't it? Fred, you was in the Navy, and then
Yes.
and you was on a ship called Baltimore. Is that right?
Baltimore.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that ship.
Well, it's a heavy cruiser,
Was it? Yeah.
and there's about 1,800 people aboard, officers and enlisted men, and has the 9 8-inch guns, a lot of anti-aircraft guns, and
And you told me one time about something about gunpowder. You had to destroy gunpowder after the war.
well, we were in off the coast of Korea over there, and giving artillery support to some of the troops there on the foot soldiers. And we'd been at general quarters about 18 hours, something like that, a long time. And these 8-inch guns are loaded from the magazine way below decks. Got chain elevators, and it comes up one shell at a time, you know. And the gun crew takes it and gets it in the gun and gets it ready to fire. Anyway, one came up, magazine, brass canister of gunpowder came up, had a cut place in it some way on that elevator.
Yeah.
It got tore apart. It was leaking, and I was standing next to it, and that was my job at the time to grab the canisters and get them in the breech of the gun. But the gun captain sitting back up behind me, he witnessed the tear in that canister also, and he yelled at me to get that thing and get the thing out of here, get it overboard. So I grabbed it, and where the hole was leaking, I put that against me, and I hugged it like to keep it from pouring out on the deck of the gun turret. And so then, to get it overboard, I had to get out of the turret. Of course, those things sit on about a 15-foot high pedestal, and I didn't have any choice but just to jump to the main deck. But it was dark; I couldn't see what I was going to land on. But I hit somebody had been using a push broom there when they sounded general quarters, and just left it there on the deck, and my feet was froze, and I landed right on top of that handle of that push broom, and I thought I'd probably broke both feet, but I did get it overboard eventually.
Yeah.
And then when they carried me down to the sick bay, the doctors determined that my feet were so frostbitten that I needed to be taken down to Manila to the Army hospital that was treating all the Korean frostbite victims. And the captain at the time really done me a big favor by just turning the ship in towards Manila, you know, and without orders from anybody. It was his ship and his crew he was responsible for, so he jeopardized his own career to save somebody, and I appreciate it. But anyway, he got me down to Manila in time to keep my feet from having to be amputated, and
That's some deal. And if I'm not mistaken, there were 6 of you guys in the service at one single time. Is that right? 6 of them
yeah,
at one
that's
time.
right.
There was, yes.
That's just remarkable. I know your parents had to be worried to death.
Yes, and Mom had to write 6 letters every day.
Yeah, and you told me earlier she may have wrote one to Fred, and the one you got might say
and
Fred
MB
on
may get it.
and
yeah.
he'd get your letter,
Yeah.
or vice versa.
Yeah, that happened more than once.
Now, I'd had the pleasure of meeting Elsie one time, but I know he's gone now. And Elsie was in the Navy, is that correct?
That's right.
Yes.
Right.
And let's see, he was on a ship called the USS Shelton.
Shelton, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah,
He was a radarman.
a radar.
Yes, sir.
And what I have here about a relief ship that was sunk, that was going. They took their place, didn't they? At one time.
Yeah, I'm sure this is, and his wife is over here. She'll correct me later if this
Yeah.
is wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is right. He told of a time that they were shelling Korea,
Korea.
and of course they kind of took turns, and
Right.
they moved out, and another ship came in and
Took its
replaced them
place, and they-
and took over the job. You know, they went before they out to sea, and the replacement ship then got hit by a return fire from the shore.
And he wasn't in very long, and he got in when he was 17. Is that right?
I believe it was 17. He was on what they call a kiddie cruise.
Kiddie cruise. Yeah.
At his 21st birthday, either the day before or the day after, whatever. Anyway, the 21st birthday had a deal.
Was his
That's when he
last
would
day.
I've
get
never
out.
heard of that term before.
Kitty
He
cruiser.
spent Elsie spent a lot of time as a shore patrolman too while he
Yes.
was
Did he?
in the service. Yeah.
And then he came home and lived around the Essex and Gray Ridge area. He worked for a telephone company for a while, and then he farmed.
He farmed, right.
State.
He was also on the county commission here in Bloomfield for a while too.
That's
Served a
right.
term on the
That's
county
right.
commission.
Stoddard
Yeah.
County.
And he had two sons, and Scott and Doug, and Scott farms down there now.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And then his Scott's son runs the John Deere place at
That's
Dexter.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
And then Doug, I guess if we knew what Doug does, we'd have to, somebody has to shoot us.
That's right. He's,
That's what we've been told, yes.
Because he is investigator for the
Inspector General.
Inspector General.
Yes.
in
Of the US.
Washington D.C.
and right now he's
Yes.
in Afghanistan, or he's in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah. And MB's done left us, so Don, we're down to you.
Okay, well, I was in the Navy. I spent 4 years in the Navy. I spent a year, my last year in high school, in the reserves, going to the meetings in Cape. But the unique thing about my service is I spent 4 years on active duty in the Navy, and never once, not even to visit, set foot on a ship.
And then did you have to learn how to swim?
Yeah, well, yes, I did. Matter of fact, I had to learn how to swim. But all my service was on shore. I spent almost 2 years in Sicily, and I spent some time in Iceland and in Puerto Rico, and in Jacksonville, Florida. But never did set foot on a ship.
What was it like in Iceland other than being cold? Is it
I just cold and barren. I wasn't up there very long, but
crazy? Is it
very-
green or snow?
do what?
Just green or snow?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're on the base there in Keflavik, Iceland. They had a little place along the street there where they had them like a half a dozen like bonsai trees. They were about this tall.
Yeah.
And we called it the Icelandic National Forest.
Well, that's
But
neat.
that was an interesting.
And you didn't have to have serve in any combat then?
No combat at all. I had the Cuban Missile Crisis while I was in, and we were all
Yeah.
on alert, but we didn't have to wound up not having to do anything. So
And then you came back to this area and worked for the phone company for
33 years.
33
right.
years.
Yep, sure did.
And I know a good friend of Harry Williamson that works with you, and a local politician here. Let's tell a story on Billy Pat Wright while we have the opportunity. The opportunity may not rise again to tell one on Billy Pat.
Well, Billy Pat was a good fellow, but we always kidded him that sometimes we call him be right back bright.
Be back.
You'd be working with him and he'd say, I'll be right back, and then you wouldn't see him again, so he'd be gone.
But he left you stranded one time, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. We carpooled. We were all working in Sykeston, and he drove one day. His dad would drive, and that evening he had just I don't know what happened to him. Anyway, he just got in the car and left. He didn't think a thing about us, and I had to call my wife and had her come get me and the other two guys, bring us home. And he didn't know anything about it. He didn't think about it until the next day. We came and asked him why he left. He says, "Oh, that's right. I was driving yesterday." So, sorry, Bill. You did a good job in Congress for us, but you.
Well, David, Say the best to last.
Yes, sir.
Well, you're a Navy man too.
Yes, sir.
Did you have to learn to swim too?
I did. Yes.
Well, what
I joined the Naval Reserve in March of 1964, and then graduated from high school in 1964. And about October, something like that, I went to San Francisco, Treasure Island, and went to electronics technician school. And it was, I was there on Treasure Island for a year. And when I graduated from school, I got orders to the USS Whitfield County. It's LST 1169, home ported out of Yokosuka, Japan. But the Vietnam was starting to get pretty active at that time. This is 66, 67 time frame. And I spent a total of 19 months in country in South Vietnam. And we did a lot of work with the Army and Rivron forces and whatnot. And an LST is almost like a floating warehouse, and it's they used us to, of course, keep supplies and whatnot. And we had berthing spaces for like 1,200 troops, and so we could give them a place to come in from battle and take a bath and get a night's sleep, and then fed, and then send them out again. So that was fairly interesting, very scary at times doing that. But one thing that I would have loved if this could have happened, but we were going from Yokosuka and we were headed to Sydney, Australia. And we were, the plan was to pick up some Australian Marine and take them to South Vietnam. And of course that was going to allow us to cross the equator, and we were going to go through the shellback ceremony, and we'd all be shellback sailors after that. It'd be tough. And anyway, got about 400 miles from the equator, and that was when the Pueblo was captured in North Korea, and everything in the 7th Fleet was turned to North Korea. So we headed toward North Korea.
I think I told you earlier, I think I was in the 11th grade at that time, and current affairs class, I had to do a report and keep up with the Pueblo, and the whole time I had to keep my report going, what was happening with the Pueblo.
So of course we steamed so slow, flank speed for us was like 13 knots, something like that. And by the time we got there, they were already starting to send people different places, and the trip to Australia was canceled because someone else had picked that schedule up, and we then headed to Vung Tau, South Vietnam, to pick up some troops.
And while you were out in the service, you had a tragedy here at home that you really didn't know about till later on. You lost your mother.
Yes.
And,
Mom passed away while I was over there, and of course I used to get a letter every day from Mother, just like the rest of these guys did.
Yes, sir.
And so I went from a letter every day to no mail at all, and I went to fussing about that. And my sister-in-law, Russell's wife in Arlington, Texas, give my address to a young lady down there.
Yep.
And we wrote for 19 months before we ever laid eyes on each other, before we ever saw each other. So we knew each other pretty well. And I guess it worked out. We just celebrated our 44th wedding anniversary.
My goodness, my goodness. So, in other words, your mother helped hook you up, and she'd already passed me, but she got you guys together, didn't she?
Yes, sir. That she did.
Nothing like a good love story.
That's right. It worked out great.
And staying in love.
Yeah, very true.
Well, good deal.
Professional service with care and compassion. We at Rainey Mathis Funeral Homes strive to provide you a respectable environment and services during the time of your loss. We offer numerous services including pre-planning arrangements, memorial family tributes, and webcasting for those unable to attend a service. We will listen to you and your wishes to help plan a celebration consistent with your expectations. Rainey Mathis Funeral Homes in Dexter and Bernie.
With an interactive home security system from New Wave, your family comes home to peace of mind. Now we bring you the future of home security. Arm and disarm your system remotely from your office computer or iPhone. Even look in on family or pets with live video from inside your home. In an emergency, our 24/7 alarm monitoring responds with the help you need. Peace of mind wherever you are. Now available from New Wave Communications.
All right, welcome back here. Now we've been on break and we're gonna go to Mr. MB today. And MB, tell us what branch you were in the service.
Well, I was in the Navy.
Mm-hmm. About what year was that?
Went in January of '55 and got out in January of '59, and then served 4 more years as a reserve.
Okay. So you had a total of a little more than 8 years, didn't you?
Right, total of 8 years, yes, sir.
Well, good deal. And you were on a ship, and you called it a tanker. Tell us what a tanker was.
Well, it hauled fuel for the ships of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a little different than what they had had up to then, in that we could haul fuel oil for the engines, and ammunition for the weapons, for
Mm-hmm.
the guns, and replenishment, food and whatever for supplies. So it's called an AOR, Auxiliary Oiler Replenisher.
And you also told me you hauled troops on it. Is that right?
Uh,
Or was that somebody else?
no, that was David.
Was it? Okay. Okay.
We primarily, this had the ship's complement of
Yeah.
of people.
And the ship you were on, you told me it had been captured by the Japanese at one time?
No, it was a German ship.
It was a German ship.
And,
Okay.
And we captured it. I think
I
the
see.
English captured it, and we traded them out of it somewhere or another.
Oh, I see.
And we could make one pass alongside a warship and give them fuel and ammunition and supplies.
I see.
And
Okay.
prior to that, and they'd have to make ships would have to make 3 passes, 3 different ships. So it's
And-
kind of a different then. And
Yeah.
then they built a bunch of them like that later on.
And I'm sure it was one of many, because the problem of getting supplies to all the soldiers all over the world had to be a major undertaking.
Oh, very much so, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was the longest time period you were probably out on the water?
Lordy, I don't know. I think about 4 months.
I see. Now, you also told me, I think, that you, after the war, that you used that ship for another purpose. Surveying or...
No, well, it was a different ship.
Oh,
I
it
mean,
was a
I
different
got off that ship in about a year,
I see.
and then I got on a survey ship,
Uh-huh.
and we would go out and take soundings of the ocean floor
Yeah.
in relation to where it was on the land, and with the information we gathered, they could make charts, maps of the ocean floor.
Ocean floor. And I guess that was helpful for the submarines and other things too,
Yeah.
that I'm not even aware of.
I think I heard that one time they used that information to lay a transatlantic cable, from one continent to the other.
And where you live out now?
Sykeston.
Sykeston? Well, good. And it's good to know, and you grew up right around in this area, around
Right, Stoddard County.
Stoddard County.
And
Well, good. Well, we know you're going to have to get out of here and make tracks for another engagement.
yes, sir.
And I believe we'll go to Miss Linda now, the sister. And Miss Linda, tell us about your service duty.
Well, when I got out of high school, I was strongly discouraged to join the service by my siblings, so I did it, and so I don't have any military.
There you go. But you had
But I'm very proud of all of them.
you had a sister that was in
Yes.
the service too.
Yes.
Did she ever get to relate to you in the service experiences?
She didn't really talk about it
Didn't
too
talk
much.
about it much?
Not too much.
I understand you have had a daughter that served in the
Yes.
military.
My daughter Laura was in the Army for about 7 years.
Mm-hmm. And she was stationed in Afghanistan for a while?
No, she did 2 different times in Korea, South Korea.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And since you have the privilege of being the youngest of this family, tell us how many years in total that this entire family served in the military.
Okay, I believe it was like 93 years total service.
Isn't that remarkable? That is just simply remarkable. And that 93 years doesn't include the children and grandchildren of this family.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just simply remarkable, and we certainly appreciate the time that this family has served. It's just really a story in itself.
Yeah.
And we know you all have to get going today, and thank you for being here with us, and we'll let you all make your escape.
Okay.
Thanks for being with us, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Tyler, I think that winds us up with the Wethington family here today, and I hope you really enjoyed our program today. It's really a unique family that served 93 years
93.
total in the military, and that's just magnificent.
Proud of every one of them.
And if you would like a copy of these programs that we've done, call the TV station, and they will mail you one. And any way we can help the public out there understand more. And if you've got a request for a certain individual that you would like for us to interview, we'd be happy to do so. So give us a call. And thanks for tuning in today.